Ferrari is suffering. Team principal Frederic Vasseur knows it perfectly as well as President John Elkann. It is a period of decline in Formula One where Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz do what they can, as both drivers have once again been deceived by the expectations of being able to compete at the top, only to have a rude awakening at the Canadian Grand Prix. On that occasion, the Montreal weekend was filed away as something that can happen. On closer inspection, however, in Montreal, the various problems of the Ferrari SF24 car came to light and then reappeared at the Circuit de Catalunya in Spain, at the Red Bull Ring in Austria, and at the Silverstone circuit in England last weekend. The reasons are varied, and we have already extensively discussed them. In such a competitive scenario, it is not easy to come together, especially if the expectations were quite different, and suddenly the house of cards collapses miserably. Reacting in such conditions is very complicated, partly due to the current Formula One regulations, which prevent on-track testing and also major investments, and partly because perhaps the spirit and determination to find a quick recovery are lacking in Maranello. Moreover, meanwhile, as officially announced the day before yesterday, the most titled Formula One team in the world continues to lose key members. This time, it is the sporting director who is stepping down, without a doubt, a significant loss. Italian aerodynamicist Enrico Cardile came to Maranello thanks to the late Sergio Marchionne. Impressed by the Italian technician, who at the time was working in the GT sector, the Italian-Canadian businessman decided to bring him into Ferrari's Formula One project. More than a decade spent in Maranello by the Italian engineer, who, however, starting from 2025, will wear the British racing green of Aston Martin. The prancing horse is left without a real technical reference point at this moment, a big headache for the current team structure, which inevitably affects the near future as well. Loic Serra is an excellent element but will not take Enrico Cardile's place, as we explained yesterday. He was not brought from Mercedes for this purpose. There is talk of a famous Mr. X and the pre-contract that Adrian Newey has signed with the Maranello team. We can only wait, but in the meantime, what is happening at Ferrari? The Hungarian Grand Prix will be the 13th race of the 2024 Formula One Championship, the first of the second part of the calendar. The layout of the Hungaroring could also favor Ferrari, which, however, finds itself without an essential technical guide. Just over a week to decide what to do and stop making bad impressions worldwide. These days, several meetings are taking place in Maranello. The objective, first of all, is to definitively understand the latest aerodynamic update package that debuted in the Spanish Grand Prix. Taking a step back when you make a mistake is always wise. It remains to be seen whether the updates can be recovered or not. Former Ferrari man Andrea Stella, team principal of McLaren since last season, has always shown calm and composure on the topic of upgrades. He always pointed out that it is better to wait and be convinced of the updates than to accelerate the production of new parts without adequate certainty. The reasoning of the former Ferrari race engineer makes sense, an approach that the Italian side has not chosen. On the contrary, the team led by Frederic Vasseur has pressed the accelerator because even 2024, in the minds of the sports management, could be a championship where they try to challenge Red Bull. For this reason, the inverted side pods in RB20 style debuted at the Imola circuit, the 7th World Championship event. A solution quickly studied and implemented with reasonable success. This brought some small gains in aerodynamic efficiency and better flow management towards the rear of the SF24 single-seater. A move that was supposed to be sealed by the second aerodynamic package of updates brought forward for Spain. An effort made to accelerate the timeline that, in fact, has tremendously complicated things. A new floor, an unprecedented medium-high downforce rear wing, and a slight reshaping of the side pods. The result? The correct working point of the SF24 definitively disappeared, compounded by a very narrow setup range with or without updates. Yes, because in Great Britain, despite the Ferrari participating in the official sessions with the previous technical version, the troubles remained the same. The Hungaroring circuit is up next, as mentioned, a track with peculiar characteristics where Ferrari must necessarily show signs of recovery. It is not yet known at the moment how the weekend in Hungary will be approached. The Ferrari top management is meeting this week in order to assess the difficult situation the F1 team is going through, a necessary meeting to establish a work plan to be implemented in the next 2 months. John Elkann will also participate in the meeting, the Ferrari president, although he always remains detached from the world of motorsport racing, demands precise explanations from Frederic Vasseur in this moment of deep discouragement. For the first time since last February, Gianni Agnelli's grandson harbors some doubts about the French manager's work. This does not mean that Frederic Vasseur's position is at risk, but it is clear that the season's progress suggests that part of the blame lies with the Frenchman as the head of Ferrari's racing department. Also on the discussion table is the 2025 Formula One season and especially 2026, a year in which the team must be ready. Because if the team's intention is to start a winning cycle, Ferrari must be at its maximum potential in all its departments. Certainly not as it is today, with technicians seemingly groping in the dark. The story of Formula One's development war in 2024 has been very much about whether car updates fall into the upgrade or downgrade category. For some teams, like McLaren, Mercedes, and Haas, each new iteration appears to be delivering the steps hoped to help push them forward. For others, like Aston Martin, RB, and Ferrari, new parts have led to some unintended consequences and left them not only facing competitive challenges, but an urgency to get to the bottom of what has gone wrong. In Ferrari's case, its issue appears to revolve around a new floor that arrived as part of a Spanish Grand Prix upgrade. While the new parts delivered more downforce, especially in the low-speed corners, one consequence was it helped trigger the return of bouncing in fast turns, something which has hampered the squad in recent races. At last weekend's British Grand Prix, Ferrari conducted a floor comparison across both cars to work out which solution was best, and in the end opted to roll back its floor to the Imola spec. While that move proved best for the short term in giving Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc the best hope for the Silverstone weekend, moving forward the team clearly needs a more permanent solution, but more critical than that is in getting an understanding of why what has been delivered to the track is not what was expected, because until it has that answer, then it cannot hope to make any more progress. As Mercedes technical director James Allison talked about earlier in the year, if an upgrade proves to be a downgrade, then the consequences can be huge. It is a situation not lost on Ferrari team principal Frederic Vasseur, but there is no sense that he fears the Maranello squad cannot turn things around to get back in the fight at the front. That confidence is based on the fact that, 12 months ago, Ferrari appeared to be going through an exact same scenario where updates were not delivering all that had been hoped for, and the team needed some understanding of what had gone wrong. The breakthrough came at the Dutch Grand Prix when the Maranello team elected to sacrifice its weekend preparations in favor of what was effectively a single-day test to focus entirely on car experiments. It is why he thinks the call to split floors across the cars at Silverstone, even if it meant a potential hit to hopes for the British GP, was the right thing to do to kickstart its understanding of what was going on. While the floor data from Silverstone's practice running pointed to the new version being taken off the car for the remainder of the weekend, Frederic Vasseur says a decision will be taken in the next few days about what the squad will do for the next race in Hungary. The focus before making that call is in trying to get to the bottom of why things have happened. Asked about the trigger for the problems, Frederic Vasseur said it was not known right now.